Hey there guys, how's it going? Chris here. Time for another shop talk with Chris. Today we're not in the shop, we're actually in my backyard. And today what we're working on is a 2005 Toyota Matrix XRS. This car, I believe it has 172,000 or so on the odometer. And while this car has several other things that's going on, the pressing matter for today to get it back on the road is the radiator. I've discovered that this car has sprung a leak in the radiator. If you can see where the plastic end cap of the radiator is crimped onto the metal of the radiator fin assembly, that has sprung a leak. You can probably see it better. This is the replacement radiator. You can see how the metal is crimped over onto the plastic there. And just over time, I'm sure that radiator has never been replaced or serviced or anything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing that radiator with that new unit over there. That unit over there is a CarQuest. I actually got it off rockauto.com for like $64. So not bad. I think O'Reilly wanted like 170 or something for a new radiator. Rock Auto is the way to go. You just got to be kind of selective on what you get, you know. I wouldn't get like sensors or anything from Rock Auto because there's so many cheap Chinese knockoff things that I've just had bad luck. So anyway, what the order of operations are going to be is, before I even attempt to replace this radiator, I'm going to do a complete system flush. So to do that, I've got some gallons of distilled water here, and I've got this liquid moly radiator cleaner. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drain all the fluid that's currently in the car and then replace it with the cleaner and fill it up with the distilled water. I actually got it in the house. I need to go bring it out, but I've got one of the fill funnels that are made for putting on right there so you don't spill and all that, and you can fill it up and it takes as it warms up. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to go button everything up, drive the car for like 10-15 minutes, get it warm. Let that liquid moly radiator cleaner really get through everything. I'll be driving with the heater core on, heat on full blast so it gets all through the heater core. Then I'll come back, let it cool down a little bit, drain all of that out. Then I'll fill it back up with some more distilled water. Do the same thing over again. Once I get done with that, that'll take up the rest of this evening. It's like 6:30, 6:45 now. So once I get done with that, I'll come back, park it for the night. Then first thing tomorrow morning, I'll get up, drain the radiator, drain the system. And then to actually take the radiator off, we've got just a couple of bolts. We got these two here that we're going to have to take off. These are 10 millimeter. This will just fold up out of the way. Then we've got the radiator support brackets here, and these are 12 millimeter. And if you can see, let me see if I can get my light on it. There's a bolt there. There, you might be able to see it right there. There's one bolt on this side and one bolt on the other to hold the fan shroud on, and that's a 10 millimeter. From there, all I got to do is unplug the fan, which the plug-in is right there. The whole fan shroud lifts out. Then the radiator lifts out. Pop the new one in. Go in reverse order. Fill it up, and off you go. I may look at replacing these hoses. The top hose there, and then the bottom hose over there. I'll have to see what they look like when I get down in there after I get the fan shroud out. But other than that, it's going to be a really, really simple deal. And yeah, come along for the ride. All right, and we're ready to drain this system. I'm going to be draining everything into that aluminum roasting pan. These are really cheap. They fit up under the car. I'm just going to slide this on up in there and get it to where it's going to catch when I undo the drain plug on the radiator, and just drain it out that way. Once I get all of that old coolant out, I've got some white buckets over there. I'm going to put all the old coolant in the buckets. I'll be putting all the wastewater in the buckets, and then taking those off to be recycled. So yeah, let's get to it. So I'm just going to slide this up under there. That seems about right. Let's see if I can get y'all a good look in there. Let's see, where is that radiator drain? Way down deep in there, you got the radiator drain. I don't know if you can see that right there, but I can. So I'm just going to go in there with my hand and get it draining. I swear you feel like you need 17 elbows to get to some of these things sometimes. But I got it, and it's starting to drain. And now it's draining. Just I'm going to make sure that I'm actually hitting the pan, which I am. And now that I've got the radiator drain plug out, I'm going to come over here and undo the radiator cap so it'll start flowing a little bit more free. There we are. Now it's shooting out. It's evacuating the system pretty efficiently now. I'll just let that drain for a little while. The reason I'm making this video is, doing something like this is actually a pretty easy job, and most anybody can do it. The tools you'll need are very minimal. Socket wrench set, pair of pliers, vice grips, or something like that. And that's about it. I do have the luxury of having a coolant fill kit with that funnel like I was talking about, but you don't have to have that. It is nice. And I think I picked up mine for like 15 bucks on Rock Auto, so they're not even that expensive. I'm a big proponent, you'll find out, of rockauto.com. But yeah, so all in all, if I wasn't doing the flush and everything like that, this would be a 45-minute job max for me. Anyone can do this, and you can too. So I did look up, and this system takes, I believe it's like 1.9 gallons, maybe even less than that, of coolant. So it's not even that big of a deal on your coolant cost. I'll show you. I ended up going with the Zertex Valvoline by Valvoline for Asian vehicles. Since this is a Toyota Matrix, that is what is recommended by the factory for these vehicles. You'll see like some colors, I can't remember what color it is, that they say is like a universal color of coolant. I don't generally believe that so much, especially when like gallons of these 50-50 mix car specific coolants are relatively inexpensive, and you're only really changing your coolant once every 5 years or so. You should be, or at least checking it. I know for a fact this car has not been maintained like that, unfortunately, but that's what we're doing today. I think at O'Reilly's I saw like 21 something dollars for a gallon of this 50/50 mix, and I paid, once again, Rock Auto, I think I paid $9.97 a gallon for this Zyrtex Valvoline. The liquid moly radiator cleaner was $5-6. And then what I'm going to do when I actually put the new coolant in, excuse me, I've got this coolant treatment, just as an added layer of protection. I'll be popping that into the system when I fill up with the new coolant. Just want to make sure that this car has every chance it can of having a working well cooling system. Now, I did mention that this car does have other issues, and that is for sure the fact. It does have a leaking power steering fluid reservoir area. Believe it's from the hose there. Not entirely sure, but I think that's it. It makes the most sense. So I got to replace that. The bigger thing is it has an issue where it loses power now and again while you're going down the road, or low idles, or idles rough, or just runs rough when you're going down the road. It's got maintenance required light on the dash, and I've had those codes run, and it comes back to an exhaust sensor, O2 sensor. So I believe it's just the O2 sensors, probably the upstream and the downstream will replace O2 sensors. It's just getting back in there to do it is the trick. I don't think the catalytic converter's gone out. There doesn't seem to be any of the other classic signs of the catalytic converter being bad. It does also have an oil leak on the back end of the engine there. And if you are familiar with these 2000 or early 2000s Matrixes, and I think the Altimas shared this engine, a couple of other cars shared this engine, they are kind of notorious for forming an oil leak from the gasket seal of the timing chain tensioner that is on the back top portion of the engine back here. So I need to replace that. I've already got the part. But again, it's one of those of getting back there to actually do it. Like I was joking, sometimes you wish you had 17 elbows to get into places. You definitely wish you had it down there. Other than that, though, the engine's pretty stout. Like I said, I think it has like 173-ish thousand miles on it. When it runs really well. We've also done the CV axles in this car. We've done the clutch in this car. So the drive line is really, really stout now. I'll need to be doing some brakes on this car. Tires need to be done on this car. We just got a little laundry list of things to get checked out. It's got a bad TPS, a tire pressure monitoring system sensor, I believe, in the back passenger tire. That's not a big deal. We'll just make sure that the tires are actually inflated every time you get in the car. This car is not my car. This is my friend Jay's car. She's been in ownership of this car for about 2 years now. And we've just been doing things piecemeal as we can, as she can afford it. And I've been doing as much of the work myself as humanly possible, just to save her on like shop costs and whatnot. But yeah, so it looks like the coolant has slowed to a bare drip on this draining exercise. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll shut the camera off for it, but I'll go ahead and replace the drain plug there, pull out the pan, put the old coolant into the bucket there, and then start filling it up with distilled water. I'll bring you back for that. All right. All right, guys, we're back. looks like we got about a gallon, gallon and a half or so of old coolant out of this vehicle. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use my coolant fill kit here. This kit comes with a whole bunch of different attachments and whatnot. Comes with a whole bag, and these will fit most any car out there. You just got to kind of play around with it a little bit to figure out what works for the setup you have. But if you can't find a setup that you're going to be able to use in a kit like this, well, you got a rare one. So SOL. But you can absolutely just do this with a regular funnel, or even just trying to aim and not spill right into the neck there. This is a nice to have, this is not a need to have. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and get this radiator cleaner in. Oh, and these funnels, they do have an on-off valve. So as you pour in, you're going to leave a little bit of headspace in here. You're going to have some fluid in here. We're going to turn on the car and start letting it get a little heat in it, a little bit of, get the water pump flowing, getting that fluid, in this case the water in the cleaner, dispersed through the system. And as the car warms up, air will start burping out of the system, and you'll be able to see that. Well, I will. I don't know if you will from over there, but you'll never get like the perfect fill without doing it this way, basically. So I'm going to dump this whole can of cleaner in the radiator here. I have read on the instructions here, or as my grandfather would say, the corrections, contains 300 milliliters, which is sufficient for 1 to 2.6 gallons of coolant water. So I don't really have a concern about having it too strong of a dilution. Going in with our first gallon. And this is going to take you a little bit. It's going to take you a few minutes. So you see, you might be able to see it from there. I got a little bit of headspace in that funnel there. I'm going to come over here to the top radiator hose and just start squeezing it. And what that's doing, that's kind of burping some bubbles out of the system. I'll bring you over here to show you what's going on. So you see the bubbles are burping out of the system as the water goes slowly in. Just be patient with this. You can't really rush it, but it's only going to take you, like I said, a few minutes. And I'll go ahead and add a little bit more water, because I know we got at least a gallon out of the system. And we'll just let it go. One of the key benefits of having a fill system like this is so especially when you're filling up with coolant, that you don't have any trapped air bubbles, vapor locked or air locked or whatever they call it. Yeah, air locked is the terminology. If you have an airlock in your coolant system, that means that there's a section in the system where coolant isn't able to go, and that can cause overheating issues as it gets worked its way through. And that's definitely not a great thing if you're trying to maintain your car. It's a little bit harder to navigate that without a system like this, but like I said, you can absolutely do it. And like I said, just taking your time. You can see the bubbles have really started to fall off there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go into the car and I'm going to get it running. Let's make sure I have the keys. The keys are inside. So I'm going to cut the camera here. I'll let that drain for just a little bit, and I'll come back outside and with the keys get the car running. Okay, so it's been a little bit, it's been a couple of minutes. I've got the keys from inside. So what I'm going to do now is, like I said, I'm going to get the car running, let it run for a little bit, help purge some more of that air out of the system. I will add to the funnel as needed. And once I see that it's starting to circulate and I'm not getting any more bubbles out of the system, I'll close off that release valve, or the valve on the funnel there. I'll take the funnel off, put the radiator cap back on, and then I'm going to go take this car on a drive for about 10-15 minutes to get some heat through the engine. I'll have the heater on, because your heater in your car actually works off the hot coolants in your car. There's like a mini, the best way to describe it, a mini radiator inside the car that fans will blow through and blow some of that hot air, blow air through it to get hot air out and into the cabin of the car. If you've ever experienced a heater core go out, most people will know that, because the passenger floor area will start having coolants in there. I've had that happen on a car of mine before, and that's how I learned how fun it is to replace a heater core. I actually didn't even replace the heater core. I just bypassed it, so I had no heat in that car. The same car that had no AC. And living in Middle Georgia, you can imagine how that was fun. Also, the car was black. So, enough chit chat. Let's go ahead and get this car started. And we're here in the car. There we are. This is a 6-speed manual car, by the way. So I just got it in neutral. I'm going to let it run, like I said, and we'll see how things go. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes to really get things going, get things moving in the system. You can actually see some of the bubbles already coming up. And I'm going to go over here the top hose, and give it a few good squeezes. Now, I have no illusions whatsoever to think that I have gotten all of the coolant, all of the old coolant out of this car. I know that. That is just a thing. The only way I'm really going to be able to evacuate the system completely is when I'm taking the radiator out and undoing that bottom radiator hose, as that would then be the lowest point in the system. All my goal is right now is to get some of this cleaner through the system and starting to clean out some of that gunge and crud that builds up over time, over the years. And, you know, just properly maintain as best I can this coolant system. So I'm going to let this run for a little bit, and I will come back at you when it's time to take that funnel off, and we'll go from there. All right, so I've taken this vehicle on a drive for about 10-15 minutes. I did about 8 or 9 miles in it. So including the time that the engine was running while I was trying to purge the system and add that water. And it's still running now. It's been running for about 20 minutes. While I was making that drive, I was being very cautious to be checking my coolant, the heat level in the engine. And it really did not move at all from that position there, which is great. So that really lets me know too that it is indeed the radiator. If I had any doubt, which I don't, because you can actually see some of that cleaner bubbling out from right there. So it's definitely the radiator that's the issue here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this car off, and I'll kind of clean up out here just a little bit. I'm going to let this car cool for about 45 minutes to an hour. At that time, it'll be well and truly getting into the dark areas of the evening. So I'm not going to bring you back and show you refilling it with the distilled water, just the plain distilled water. You've seen how I did that the first time. So I'll do that. And then I'll just leave it set overnight, so that tomorrow morning, when I bring back the camera, bring y'all back with me, you'll see me draining the radiator for the last time, getting everything unbolted that I need to get unbolted, get the fan shroud out, undoing that lower and top radiator hose to completely, as much as possible, drain the system. When I drain the system in about 45 minutes or so, I'm going to use one of the longer spouts that was given in that kit, and I'll actually, with my breath, I'll blow into the system to try to purge as much as I possibly can out. We did only get right at a gallon of distilled water in the system, and this system should hold, I think it's like a gallon and a half, like a gallon and a half to 2 gallons. I think I'd have to look it up again. It's been a couple of weeks since I have. So I just want to try to make sure I get as much of that cleaner out, with everything that is cleaned out. That's also why I'm doing the second distilled water flush, just to, get as much of it out of the system as possible. It's not going to hurt anything if a little bit is left over. It will be left over, in fact. So yeah, the next time you see me, it'll be a new day. It'll be in the morning, and I'll bring you back, like I said, for the actual removal and installation of the new radiator units. So I'll see you then. Y'all have a good one. Till tomorrow. Hey there, guys. It's a nice sunny morning here in Middle Georgia. For you, it's only been a couple of seconds, but for me, it's been about 15 hours or so. So last time I left you, I told you that I was going to run a distilled water flush through the system after having done the Liqui Moly system cleaner. So I did that. When I drained it, I didn't think that I had everything out, right? So I ran another distilled water flush through the system, did that process, and when I drained it, I still had a little bit of foam coming out with the water there. So ultimately I did 3 distilled water flushes, which is perfectly fine. It actually gave me an opportunity to get even more gunk out of the system. So I wrapped all that up around like 9:30 or so last night. So today, all we have to do is replace the radiator and then fill up the system again. So like I was saying yesterday, the actual replacement is going to be very, 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 very simple. I only have to remove this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and this bolt. And then, like I said, there's 2 bolts that hold on the fan shroud. Then I'll just have to, well, before all that, unplug the fan, get this zip tied cut so I can pull out the fan shroud. And then it's just dropping in the new radiator. And after I undo the top and lower radiator hoses, and then popping it in there. So let's go ahead and get started with that. It shouldn't take very long. So let me get you set up, and yeah, how about that? Yeah, I think you can see that.
So the first thing I'm going to do, yep, I need to go get, well, I can probably get this zip tie right here. There we are, get that popped. Now these old connectors can be a little bit tricky. They can be brittle. So I want to make sure that I do everything I can not to break that connector. To do that, I'm going to go get a small flat blade screwdriver, and I'll be right back. So it's easy enough that I have my toolbox right here in the back of the car. So as for tools that we're going to be using today, it's pretty much just going to be this screwdriver, a socket wrench, a 10 millimeter socket, and a 12 millimeter socket. And then I have a pair of channel locks here to help me get the clamps for the radiator hoses. No, come on. I'll come back at you in a little bit when I get this stubborn connector off. Hi, I'm back. It's been about 20 minutes because that spring clamp gave me a lot of trouble. But I got it off. Went searching around in my junk drawer. And look what I found. Found me a screw clamp I'm going to put back on the hose. So at least this one up here is like easy to get to, but down there it's kind of tight. So I'm going to pop this on the bottom when I put everything back together. So that way the next guy has a little bit of an easier time. All right, now it's time to go ahead and pull this sucker out. And that's it. Pop that over to the side, and we're going to go over here and unbox my new unit. Alrighty, so this is the new unit here. Now, this is a manual 6-speed car. Okay, so with that, I don't have to worry about transmission cooler lines. If it was an automatic, I would. These replacement heater cores here, or radiators, they come pre-installed with your transmission coolant lines already plumbed in, whereas the original radiator just took out does not have that. This is just kind of like a universal fit for this make and model car. So I'm just going to keep the plastic covers here on these tubes because I'm not going to need them. All right, let's guide this sucker back in here. Trying to be careful not to mess up the fins as much as possible. It sits down in two little areas down there at the bottom of the bracket. Now all I got to do is go reverse order. Put on the old hoses and bolt everything back up, and then start filling it up. So that's that safety cap that was on the lower radiator hose area. Trying to make sure all the fluid that I possibly can get out is out. Putting on this new screw style hose clamp. Got the hose completely seated on the boot here. I'm going to use my nut driver here and start tightening this thing up. Another one of those situations where having an electric tool would be nice, but not necessarily a need to have. All right, that clap is good and tight. Sounding a little bit German there. Top radiator hose going on. Well, before I do that, actually, let's go ahead and get the fan shroud and all back on. So yeah, let's do that.
Hey, Chris from the editing bay here. Just breaking in here to apologize for being built like Hank Hill from the waist down and having an unintentional beltline incident. I've blurred out my attempts to try to impersonate a plumber, so that'll be the censoring you see coming up. I'll be better next time. Sorry about that.
There is a little bit of coolant left in this reservoir here, so I'm going to go ahead and take off the bottom hose of this reservoir so that I can drain that coolant out of there. This is another spring style clamp, but it's just a little guy, super easy to take off. Now then, well, doesn't look like that hose really wants to come off of that nipple there, so I'm not going to force it and accidentally break the plastic here. What I'm going to do though is use the top end of this hose, just kind of angle it down so it's the lowest part in that system, and just let it drain off into this waste collection pan. There we are. And that's it. It was just a little bit, maybe about, not even an ounce or two. Fan shroud coming back in. Make sure it's seated down, which it is. There's like two little perches that this fan shroud kind of sits on the bottom. You got to make sure that you kind of engage that. Get my fan shroud bolts. That's one end. And that's the second end. I just got these finger tight for now. I'm gonna pop that hose back in that little bracket that I showed you. And now it's time for the connector. I kind of lost it there for a little bit, so the connector is on and clipped back in. Now, just popping these brackets back on. Oh, what's the trick here? Aha. I see ya. There we are. One bolt. And two bolts. And like I said, I just got them finger tight for right now. After I put this top radiator hose back on, that's when I'll go back and kind of tighten everything up. But I wanted to get the fan shroud bolts on first because it's easier to get to that with the hose off of its location. And there's not really a torque spec to be concerned with here. You just want it, you know, good and tight for what it is. It's not going to hold a lot of torque. You don't want to strip anything out because it is effectively going into plastic with a metal threaded insert. You just don't want it going anywhere.
I guess a smaller ratchet would actually do me pretty well for this job, but it's just one more bolt. I say that as I'm having trouble to get this bolt back on. There we are. There. Now to reinstall this hose and its brackets. And there it is. And don't forget to reattach the overflow hose to your reservoir here. It's a beautiful day outside. We're at about, I'd say probably about 75, 76 degrees right now. It's a wonderful, wonderful day. All right, top radiator hose going back on. And now to fight with the spring clamp again. It's going right on. I think it sensed that I was just angry enough at spring clamps that I would replace it. There you are. All right, so that's it. Now I'm going to refill the system, and I'll come back to you when I do that. So, we're ready to fill this system back up. Like I said yesterday, I went with the Valvoline Xerox Asian vehicle formula. It's meant for like Toyotas, Lexuses, Scions like this. Check what your car requires before you put any antifreeze in. This is what is recommended for this vehicle. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm also going to use this coolant transmission. So, transmission coolant treatment. You put this in with your antifreeze mixture. And let's see. I'm finally reading the instructions on it. Shake bottle, add 1 ounce per quart of liter of coolant. Start the engine, turn heat on high and run for 10 minutes to circulate. So, there's 4 quarts to a gallon, so I'm going to add probably about 4-5 ounces to this system. I expect it to take back maybe 1.5 gallons. So this is a 16 fluid ounce bottle here. So I'm just going to pour it in until it's about even with this here label, and that should give me right around what I need. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in the funnel. It's just an added layer of protection. Hopefully it'll help it claims to reduce heat up to 25 degrees Fahrenheit and prevent corrosion, electrolysis, and deposits that can cause leaks. So, can't hurt, right? You know what I didn't do, which you should always do, is just check and make sure that the drain plug on the bottom of this radiator is good and tight. That's some neon pink stuff right there, bud. So we've got maybe about a gallon in there so far. That first bottle I put in was a partial bottle from when she just had it to keep the car on the road for a little bit. Since it was such a small leak, she was only having to top it up like once every 3 days or so. So I did leave the drain plug off overnight. And when I took the bottom radiator hose off in between the clips, I took maybe about 20 minutes or so just to let that drain as well. So I just wanted to make sure I got as much of the coolant, old coolant, and that distilled water out of the system as I possibly could. All right, so I'm just going to let this sit for a little while and just kind of percolate. I'll come back in maybe 5 or 10 minutes and start the car up. Let it start getting warmed up and circulating through the system, making sure I don't have any airlocks in the system. Then I'll go take it on a drive for about 15-20 minutes, and we'll go from there. But this is pretty much it. I'll come back at you when everything's wrapped up and good to go for the sign off. All right, so we've got the job done. The system is full up with coolant. I've checked to make sure that there's no leaks, which there's not. I took the car on about a 20-minute drive. Once it cools down a little bit, I'm going to pop the cap again and just top off anything that needs to be topped off. And then I will fill the reservoir tank here to about halfway in between the minimum and maximum marker. And this job is buttoned up. So, like I said, this is a relatively easy job to do. If I didn't do the flush, it would have been hour max with very simple tools, like you saw. Just a 10mm socket and wrench and a 12mm socket, and then some pliers to get the clamps off of the hoses there. Like I said before, it's nice to have one of those coolant fill kits with the funnel like I was using, but you don't necessarily have to have it. You can use just a regular funnel or anything like that. The thing to note here, though, is the old coolant. You're going to have to find a place to have that recycled. You may have a place nearby you that you already know of. Unfortunately, it seems like everywhere around here, where I'm at, doesn't take in old coolant. So I'm going to have to search around, probably have to take it to another town or something, somewhere, and get them to take it. Or, I've called all types of, just about every auto shop in my area.
I've also called my auto parts stores in my area. None of those take it. I called the waste management service for my area. They don't take it. And I called the city's water and wastewater department, and they didn't know of anybody that would take it. So for the time being, it's just going to sit in that jug there. Definitely, please don't just pour it out somewhere. Not for the least of which of the environmental contamination risks that it does pose, but also if an animal were to drink that coolant, it will kill them. I've unfortunately lost a couple of dogs from an old neighbor who would put out his antifreeze and let animals drink from it because he hated dogs. That was back when I was a kid. So, yeah. So please don't do that. I'm begging you. I'm actually an environmental engineer for my work, so I take stuff like that very seriously. But anyway, the only thing I have really left to do on this car today is the driver's side window has come off the track. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to film it. There's already another video out there on YouTube of doing the exact same thing that I'm about to do with the window. But other than that, I think this will suffice. I think I'm going to sign off here. Don't be scared of working on your own vehicles. The YouTube and the internet is a wonderful place. If you search, you can find pretty much how to do anything. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this video and the other Shop Talk videos as well, is just making things a little bit more approachable for people to maintain their own vehicles instead of having to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars going to a shop. I'm sure that if I went to a shop to have the same exact thing, it would be $400 or $500 minimum, and I am maybe $120 out of pocket for parts and fluids, and 2-3 hours of my time doing the flush and replacing the radiator myself here in my backyard. So with that, I hope everyone's having a wonderful day, and if you're not, I hope your tomorrow is good, is better. I just wanted to say that you can do this. You got it. If you're going through something, we've all been there. So reach out, talk to people you care about, and people that care about you. They will help. If they're true, they will help. So anyhow, y'all have a good day. I'm out. Hail yourself.